Hi, I'm LBG. I got something tickled a little when people say to me, no one tells me what to do, except my mother, or my parents and so on. And the truth is, your government tell you what to do, the state tell you what to do. And you're not a free spirit like you think you are. Every single aspect of your life, you're being told what to do. And it's not, as much as I think the state is shite, it's not totally their fault because we just need to be told all the time because we're so badly behaved. That's not the main topic, but as an aside, we're pretty badly behaved. You could be walking down the street and you think to yourself, it's much easier in this really congested place if people walking northwards stayed on the left and the people walking south walked on the right hand side. It would ease congestion. But as soon as people see a gap in the southbound traffic, they cross over. And it just creates confusion again. Or, you think that your area is not looking nice, you want a park or something, and they put a park up and they say, well, keep off the grass. And then people kind of argue for their right. Well, it's just, like grass have the right to be here until the grass gets trod on and then you don't have your beautiful park no more. And it applies to many, many things like, you can't drive faster than 30 miles an hour here because even the locals, they know there's children there, they know there's people crossing the roads and they're still going to try and drive 50, 60 miles an hour. It's a question of education because you often see the younger people doing that in the main. Older people do it too. They're not getting a free ride out. But they just have to be reminded all the time. And eventually they just have to get fines and be coerced, threatened to behave well. So we're always being told what to do, and it's not totally our own fault. Now, the other side of that is the control that the state wants over us, telling us what we must and mustn't do, what we must do and what we can't do with our bodies, and how we interact with each other, where we meet, how we party, and so on. And that, for me, is just too much interference because no one should own the right to your body or your mind. And the mind's the freest place to be. Within the confines of your mind, you can do anything, but your body is also yours too. And we've made rules around that. No one's allowed to touch it. And, that's the salt and so on. And we, as humans, and depending on your culture, we have a space. In Spain, where I am at the moment, they're pretty close for an English person. I've got to say, for an English person who grew up in an English culture, the Spanish people sound really, really close to you. And, they'll talk to you looking into your face. And that took me some getting used to. I like it. Those are our rights. But we're always being told what to do. Like in the UK, the government decide that they're going to cut salt down for people. They don't tell people, cut down salt, it's bad for your health. And is that because they've got too much control or because we're stupid? But they slowly started removing salt out of food products. And it's like, wow, people say when there's a conspiracy, how can they hide it? And it's like, well, it's not about it being hidden. It's about the fact that they can do it and you wouldn't know. The fact that they decrease salt by about 40% in food products over a period of, I forget what the actual period was, excuse me. I'll probably put it down there in the video afterwards. Over a certain number of years without you knowing, and suddenly you're still eating the same food without any complaint, means that you can be tricked and always be tricked. And the state love a trick, man. They love tricking people. That's for you, Telvin Croydon, who doesn't speak the lingo. So we're always being coerced and pushed. So with that much power, you've got to understand that the state is controlling us in a multitude of ways and always telling us what to do. But the point of this is about being told what to do and where does it stop. And the truth is, for those of you who are not aware, you don't have to do what anyone tells you. I'm not going to go too hard into the legal fiction and how the government or the state has created a legal fiction, a person that they can act on. That's topic for another show. But just to let you know, and do your own research on this as well, we're all pretty much free as human beings, and no one can tell us what to do, and we can do what we like, and they can do what they like to us, actually, as well. And it works both ways. But don't you agree that if we decide not to harm each other, I won't harm you, you don't harm me, make some basic rules, then it creates a harmonious environment. And you could be living in a small community, maybe like with 500 people, and you just need those basic rules. You're not allowed to harm anybody, and that harm is physical, and that's it, okay? And I think that sometimes it's going to maybe go down to mental, like name calling, bullying, and so on, and that's a little bit more difficult to deal with, because at what level do you say that someone's actually harmed, and how do you prove that they were harmed? It has to be shown in some way. And then the other is not to cause harm or damage to other people's property, and after that, not to do fraud in business. In fact, that's the common law, and everything beyond that, you can do what you like. And how you get your land, and how you decide who's going to run your community and so on, that's another ball game altogether, but I'll be covering that as well in the future. But if you live by those three laws alone, then you can actually lead a better life, and the people around you can. Now, people talk about natural law as well, and I don't know about that. I don't know too much about it. I know a lot about it, don't get me wrong, but what I mean is I don't totally agree with everything, because we don't actually have any rights. Who says, and where does it come from that you have the right to like sunbathe topless? That's just a choice of yours, and if someone doesn't want you to do that, they don't have to, or they may not want you to do it near them, or in their garden, or in their field, or near their property, or on their property would be the best, not near their property. And we say, well, it's my right, and so you don't have any rights. We don't have any rights for animals. But if you want to take part in a civil society or that community of 500, then they start designating rights, and this is what the state does, this is what the government does. And part of me thinks, okay, it's just in many ways. They say, okay, we're going to grant you these rights, but with us granting these rights, you're going to have to live under our rule. We'll protect you, and we'll give you certain rights, and those are the rights you have, but you don't have a God-given right. But those rights, we stand by you and we'll protect you, and that's not a bad idea sometimes. So you live within this community. But there's some of us who don't. And it doesn't matter that, people say, well, you're not like 100% honest, you'll still want to commit crime, or you still want to do things which we frown upon. But the things that you frown upon most of the time, they're just like statutes. They're stupid. Not all stupid, but majority of them are. They're just money-making schemes for government and so on. You look at England, which is one of the richest countries in the world, and everybody takes money out of England. Everybody. You can come to England, or be born in England, and you can be everything from a waiter to a brain surgeon, a politician or a thief. Not much difference there. And you can earn a living. In fact, you could become very rich. And that's not because England gives you opportunity. That's because England is a money pit, and that's where all the crime happens. It's like one of the biggest commercial centres on the planet, and crime goes on there at every single level. And if you don't want to do crime, and the majority of us don't, then you just live your normal life, because around a country that has plenty of money, then there's plenty of industry, plenty of commerce. So you can get up, you can go to work, you can get an education, you can fit into the system. But once again, some of us who don't want that either. We've decided, listen, we know we've got this kind of sensibility, this innate understanding that we belong to the planet, and I don't think it's for everyone, but we want to live that way. We'd love to go and live in the field, build our own houses, and get our own water, clean our own water. For those who love meat, go and hunt our own food, grow our own vegetables, and so on. But for some reason, they don't allow it, and I don't know what that's all about. Truly, at the deepest level. And all I'm left with is that they want a taxpayer. They want to create something that they can tax and use our energy, because our energy is our wealth, and that's the wealth that they take from us. For everybody, and I mean as in two words, everybody that does labour, we generate energy. That power is then converted into money, and that's what they live off. The fact that you get paid like £400 a week at work means that someone's making some money off of you. Even if they're charging someone, you're making 450 on you, they're still making 50 of you. And if they've got like 20 employees, then that's £1,000 that they're making clear profit every week. Obviously, it's much bigger than that, and there's some other intricacies that are involved in employing people and running a business. But in a nutshell, that's it. And in order for us to be employed by the state as chattel property, like an indentured servitude, we get a wage, and that's their way. And it's not the wage, it's the tax. And now you may think, oh, tax is necessary. Tax builds roads and tax builds schools and so on. And the point is, if you didn't pay tax, you'd still have schools and you still have roads. It's like when you're used to something, when you grow up having something around you all the time, to you it's normal. If it was around you, if every time you went to the town hall you had to have a slap in the face and you was born into that, you would just think it's normal. And I know it's a crazy notion, but that's how crazy everything else seems to me and to people like me, who think the same. We're born into a world with taxation, so we just say, okay, that's cool, that's normal. And for whatever story that's around it with, like the slap in the face, I'll be slapping you around the face because the person who's dealing with the counter is the face slapper, and they need to see you when you come in and create some sort of interaction with you. And it sounds really weird, but if that's the way it was, you'd accept it. And this is what we're doing with the tax. We're being slapped around our face, and we just accept it. When you think about the taxes in the UK and the fact they tried to raise it for the Napoleonic Wars and then they didn't get rid of it, it's like, well, how did we survive before, and how have other countries survived? Like when you think of the United States, and before the 1920s and 30s, when people just lived on a farm and they grew their own crops and they had their livestock and they sold that to make a living, and nearby farms did the same, and they'd done exchange and barter and so on. How did those people survive? And then you think to yourself, well, tax is fair, everyone should pay. But those people lived there from birth to death. They never even went into the big cities. Their children were raised to farm and so on. And now suddenly they've got to pay a percentage of whatever they earn to the government. And that's such a crazy notion. It's easier to understand when you look at it in that perspective, rather than you city people who live in the city and think, oh no, you've got to pay taxes because we've got roads and so on. But if you live in a city and they've got all these companies that are making dollar in the city and factories and so on, like and the industrialists and so on, then they should pay for it. The money should come from the businesses, and they've got enough. Because when you think of a company, you say, well, they made well, not just that. The CEO of the company is worth 40 billion, or he made like 2 billion last year for himself, and all the other top tier salary people made millions. You know that company can afford it, and not all companies are the same. I understand that, but there should be levels and tiers. But the big companies get away with tax, and they claim that it's because they make innovation and so on. And it's the same like the copyright laws. I've done another a show which has a brief section on copyright. It's quite good though, watch it. And I will do a whole show on copyright real soon. But they've got a monopoly on it now, whereas before we said, okay, we're giving a little time so that no one can use their product, and they promise in return they're going to keep on making and delivering more goods to us. But it doesn't work that way, and it's the same with the taxes. It's used to fund wars and the politicians and companies that are failing, like banks and so on. We use it to subsidise them, and they've been stripping us dry for the longest time. Without a second thought to our well-being. So that's tax. Sorry, I went off there. But about being told what to do and how we're told what to do, no one has any rights over another human being, truly. We'll just fight it out, basically. If someone says they've got a right to cross this bridge and you say you want to go first, you just fight to the death, or you beat the other person down and you cross. But once again, as I said earlier, we've decided we're civil and we should educate each other. It's like, look, it's no big deal. Just move across one of you and let the other person cross, rather than clans and families and, colour and sex. None of that should really come into it. It's just we're all humans, and that should suffice. But what the government has done, in order to have control of us, they've created a legal fiction, a persona, a person, a citizen. And in doing so, and there's no conspiracy here, that's just a fact, you'll find it in law books and so on. I'm not going to go too hard into that. It's something that I was hard into for, from 24 years, 25 years back. And I'm still studying it on a level, or interested in it. I'm not going hard in it anymore. I kind of know where I am, and that's why that adds to my contentment. So what they've done there is, because they can't act on a human being, because once again they're a legal fiction, they've just been created by man, they have no power over another person, even less than a man would have, which they don't. So you can imagine it's the same thing. And they create what is a legal fiction. And when you think about it, all those people who have control, they're just the toughest, the strongest, and the fiercest. They're the people who won the battles. That's why they own their land. They conquered someone and raped the women, enslaved the men, and so on. Stole the technology, stole the knowledge, and the resources, which is one of the main reasons about it's about the resources and the technology. And now they own that land and it's theirs. And if you want to live there, then you have to abide by their rules. And so what they do is they say, yeah, you're a citizen, you can live there. Now, when you think of it on a small scale, it's easy to understand. But a lot of people don't understand it on this national scale or global scale. And I don't mean globally, like every single way is doing it. You know, there's still tribes and some places that are successfully working. They're typically much smaller anyway, because you get a lot more complexity as soon as you add a third person to a group, apparently. So they say if you want to live there, you have to have this passport, and you know it says you're a citizen here. In fact, it starts at birth. You know, you get a birth certificate and you're registered there, and now you're this entity that's going to work for their state in the future. They know that. We don't even think about it, and a lot of people still don't understand it to this day. So they say you're a citizen now, or a person. You're this legal fiction. So when you look at all the legal documentation and all the statutes for that country, they always refer to the person, the person, the person, the person, and that's that legal fiction. And all these acts that they create apply to that legal fiction, apply to that person, which is you. But that's only if you agree to be in that person. And that's how I found my freedom. And you may say, but you're not free, you're paying taxes and you're doing this. I don't pay taxes, by the way. I do sometimes. I've had some work, and you know, it's easier for me just to go, look, I don't care, I'm earning enough there. You can steal your part. I'm not, you know, I'm not too bothered. You're thieves anyway, and it'll come back to me in some form or another. So what they do is they take this legal fiction, and for everything you do now, you do it under their acts, and you do it as a legal fiction, and it gives them complete control of you as long as you own up to being that person. If you don't own up to being that person, then you don't have to listen to them. You don't have to do anything they say, and they know that. They'll try and trick you and coerce you into trying to be that person, admit you're that person, and you know they'll try their trickery however they can down the lines, just to get you to give your name, for instance. And that's no lie. People think it's not true, but that oh shit, it's escaped my mind. Capitis diminution maxima, which is when you see your name in capital letters, it's true. That's what it does. You lose your status as a man. It's from Roman times and so on, and we're still living pretty much under Roman law, Roman state anyway. But you lose your status as a man, and you have this on all your legal documents, and they're legal documents. They're not lawful documents. You don't need any documents under law. You're a free spirit. You're just this human being. You don't need a bit of paper to say who you are. But as soon as you enter into the city, into the walled city or this community, and you want to become part of it, you cannot do it unless you do it under their terms and conditions. But they've expanded their empires phenomenally and taken the workers off of the fields and into the confines of their walled cities, and the walls no longer exist, but they're still there, and if you know what I mean. And they make you a citizen since birth, and then you acquiesce, you agree to everything unknowing, and that's how they have control over you. But you can set yourself free just by saying no. But the beauty of it, the thing I did learn along the way, is you can use those things when you want to. You don't have to use them all the time. There was a whole debate about driving, and you know, like you're not driving, you know, you're in a conveyance and so on. And it's true, you know, it just works that way. You know, from the old days, you had a horse, and then it was replaced by the engine and so on, and the car. So you're allowed to utilize that. You can stay in your house, you can build a car and an engine and go out and use it on the planet. There's no one in the world that can tell you can't. And for those that argue that, oh yeah, but you use the roads, man, it's like, I don't care. If you're going to put a slab of concrete across my country, across my land, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna go across it. I don't have to pay. You've just destroyed all my beautiful land, or at least you claim it's your land anyway, but it's mine too. It's my planet. I can go across it as I please, and I shouldn't have to pay anything for the damage you've done. I know it sounds stupid to some of you, but to me it's that simple, and that's the way it really does work. So you can use all that. You can do what you will. And so about claiming that you're using documentation, by that what I mean is you can go and apply for a license, but it doesn't mean that you're bound to it all the time. When you're not driving and your license is, sitting on top of the drawer at home, are you still driving? Are you still under the rule, under the control of that license? No. So you can even be in your car, and when someone comes and hassles you for proof of ID and like license and driving fast and so on, tell them bollocks, because you're in your conveyance. You're not actually driving right now. Driving's a legal term, and it applies to how you use your conveyance when you use your license. So if someone says, show me your license, just simply say, it's not mine. It belongs to the DVLA. They're the owners of it. I'm just using it, or I use it sometimes, but I'm not actually using it right now. It's that simple. Now think of that logic. That applies to almost everything. Once you understand that logic and you apply it to everything else, you're going to really set yourself free.
There's a man who contradicts. Wait, he's the type of guy to you. There's no first place, but he's part of a race. Eyes lie, but take a look inside. They mirror the sights you'll see.